Nation. The hobby is the people. Weekly news and interviews. It's your number one source. Sports Card Nation. The hobby is the people. Sports Card Nation.
Hey everybody, welcome to episode 238. Happy to be joined by my good friend Eric Norton, formerly of Beckett, now of Panini. We obviously talk about his decision to move on from one company to another, what he does now in his new role, what he's looking forward to, and how difficult was that as a decision. And we're going to chop up some other hobby stuff, talk about the upcoming National, and it's always great to catch up with Eric. Want to say thank you to a lot of people who reached out. I sometimes I do share some personal life stuff on these pods, and I didn't share it on the pod, but for the last few weeks I haven't been feeling great. And I was kind of nervous about what might be going on, so went to the emergency room the other day and had some. They did an EKG and some blood work and X-ray. Got some fluids and some medicine, and happy to say I'm okay. I was worried something serious was wrong, and got some medication I've got to start taking, and should be okay. But I know I posted a picture of kind of the IV in me, and a lot of people reached out with well wishes and prayers and thoughts, and it means a lot to me. I appreciate it. So back on the horse. I've kind of, those 3 weeks I wasn't feeling great. I wasn't super motivated to do a ton of stuff, just did sort of the bare minimum. But now that I kind of know what's going on and what it's not, what I kind of was worried about, something in particular, I'm kind of rejuvenated. And again, I appreciate everyone who kind of sent thoughts of concern and prayers and all that good stuff. It really hits home and makes me feel good. And so I appreciate it. Thank you.
Time for our Hobby is the People Announcer of the Week.
This is your pal Val from NASCAR Radio. Never forget, the hobby is the people.
If you'd like to be the Hobby is the People Announcer of the Week, do a WAV or MP3 file and send it to sportscardnationpc@gmail.com.
For nearly 50 years, Sports Collectors Digest has been the voice of the hobby, bringing you comprehensive coverage of the sports collectible industry. From industry news, auction results, market analysis, and in-depth stories about collectors and their collections, Sports Collectors Digest has everything you need to know about the hobby. SCD is also your leading source for listings of sports collectible dealers, card shops, card shows, and the latest from the industry's top companies. To check out all the latest news or to subscribe to the hobby's oldest magazine, visit sportscollectorsdigest.com or call 1-800-829-5561.
Hobby Hotline is the hobby's only live interactive call-in show. Join some of your favorite hobby personalities every Saturday, 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific, and the first Tuesday of each month at 9 p.m. Eastern to discuss the hottest hobby topics. If you miss us live, catch us after the fact on all major podcast platforms. Follow us on socials at Hobby Hotline.
Always excited to have my next guest on the Sports Card Shop guest line. Those who listen to this show on a regular basis, or maybe even if you don't, have heard me say that the gentleman I'm about to bring on is really one of the inspirations for this show itself. I've kind of coined him the Podfather, formerly of Becca, but he's got a new job. We're going to be talking about that amongst other things. Mr. Eric Norton, welcome back.
Thank you so much, Sean, for having me. I thought I was in an IMAX movie there for a minute with that intro. I was waiting for one of those things coming across the screen talking about illumination. It was going to be fun. We're doing good, man. This intro, I like it.
No, the only thing that's going to happen is there's going to be a intermission with a Jimmy Fund collection.
Okay, there we go. Very nice. I love the intro, man. Good job.
Thank you. So I you were with Beckett a while. How many years were you there, Eric?
9 years, just shy of 10. It was. I mean, say what you will say about Beckett. I always thought when I left Beckett, at some point I would like write a blog post or write a book or something about like the five things I learned about the hobby while working at Beckett. And every time I've sat down to do it, it's been like, what can I say that's, because I don't want to disparage Beckett. Beckett was great to me. It was a good place. But when I left, it was just time to go. It was like the writing was on the wall, and I felt it in my heart that it just wasn't for me anymore. So then I made the move over to Panini.
I've talked to you a lot of times, even off the air. That 9 years, that's a great run. That's probably more than most can say at a lot of hobby companies. And there's been ups and downs and all that. But I don't. I'll speak for myself, and for many people, you really were sort of that face for Beckett. At least one of them. Yeah. Okay, I don't want to disparage anybody else that maybe listen and say, "What? Hey, I was, but you really were at the forefront, especially on the content creation stuff with Fat Packs and just your presence at shows and doing live things at shows, live recordings at shows. I was fortunate enough to be on one of those. What is that one of the things you might miss is like the social stuff and then asking that, what will you be doing? You're at Panini now. Congratulations there. Are there similarities between the two roles here?
No, there's not similarities at all. So just to answer the back end of that question first, my role at Panini is I'm one of the assistant brand managers for football. So I'm building sets, which is something really cool as a hobbyist, as a guy who loves card collecting, who's been in it for a while. Getting to see that side of the process is something new, and it's fun. It's a learning curve. I will tell you that it's not just, oh, I want to see Sauce Gardner in this product. Well, maybe that's a bad example because Sauce Gardner is a current player, so we can use Sauce Gardner. But say I want to put Warren Sapp in a product. If we don't have a contract with Warren Sapp, I can't put him in a product. It makes total sense. So there's a little bit of learning there that goes on. As far as missing what I did at Beckett, just to be blunt with you, yeah, I missed being one of those front-facing people that went to card shows and did the podcast and did social media. Again, not to speak disparaging of the company, but they had a lot of turmoil at the top. And not this year, but last year, the week before the Mint Collective, I was just told hey, stop doing social media. Like, we don't want you to do this anymore. And they went in and they deleted everything that I had built on social media for Beckett, and I was just told, hey, stop. And that was it. By the time I worked my way back into the marketing team, onto the marketing team, I did not post to social media, but I answered every customer service question that came in on social media. I was your guy. That was me. So it was a little bit of the same thing, but it was just different. The leadership at the top, not meaning people in the building in Plano, but people on the corporate level just didn't understand what I was doing and didn't really understand Beckett's place in the hobby. I personally don't think that. I might be wrong, but I I just don't think that they understood what was happening and why Beckett carried so much weight for so long. And I would love to see them succeed again. I just don't know if the pieces are in place for that to happen right now.
Yeah, I've talked about it on this show, Eric. Other shows have talked about some of the stuff that happened in the last few years there with changes and maybe wrong calls being made. It's easy to play armchair quarterback, but you alluded to a little bit of that yourself. And hearing you answer that, one thing that stood out, it's one thing to tell somebody, hey, we don't want you to do any more shows, but why delete the archive? Why, like, that's your body of work. That would, I'm sure it upset you. It upset me. Nothing to apologize for being like, what is one thing? Hey, we don't need any more shows. We could do a whole show on whether that was even the correctest, but why take it further than that and then delete what already's been done? Why do you think that was?
What I was told was they were changing the brand. Basically, that's what happened. And we all know about the new Beckett logo. We've all seen what that looks like now. So they wanted to change the whole brand, and they weren't happy with the tone with what I was putting forward. That's fine. My issue with it is, like, I just wasn't told. I wasn't told that this was coming. I logged into Instagram on a Saturday morning, and it was gone. And, like, I wasn't given a heads up or anything like that. That was a really crappy move. Again, I just want to reiterate, people in the building in Plano, this wasn't coming from them. I knew that, and they were upset about it too. It was people above their heads that were making these decisions. So we had no reply, no say for it at all. I ended up going to that First Mint Collective. I was going there intending to host a podcast from there the whole weekend, and I literally just went there and walked around because I had no job while I was there. And so it was a little discouraging. It was cool at the same time. I got to meet some people and, shake hands and do all that kind of stuff. But to answer your question directly, why delete the archive? It was their call, and it was something I don't think that they understood, and they made that call, and now look where it's at. And it's getting better with the people that are there now, but it's not where it was. I personally don't think it was where it was. Yeah,
no doubt. I don't, how I feel about you, and I like I said in the open, this show probably exists because of you and Fat Packs, and like I always joke, you're my son's favorite hobby podcaster, so I'll have to remain number 2 on that list. So you're at Panini now. You mentioned, you're a brand manager. Is that something, like, in the back of your mind, maybe not even thinking about just company specific, but like, hey, this is something I'd like to do. I'm a huge football guy. I think you know that. I know your stuff. So they've got the right person, in my opinion, in that position. Was that something you thought about even while you were at Beckett? Like, hey, if I ever go to a card manufacturer, this is something I'd like to do. I think I'd excel at it. Was that something you thought about, or not necessarily?
So, truth be known, I started applying at Panini in like 2014, 2015. And I had just started. I'd been at Beckett maybe a year, maybe 2 years. And they had a position open on the product development side when they had the hockey license. And I applied for that position. And I even interviewed for it. And so it's been something that I was trying to get to Panini for 5 or 6 years. And the roles that interest me were, yes, product development, which is where I'm at now, working with a great group of guys, and also like acquisitions. So I like the travel. I like the, you've been a part of this. You've seen it. I like sitting down with athletes, listening to them talk, watching them sign and stuff like that. That's fun for me to do. I like doing that. So I applied for many positions there at Panini. It just so happens that this time, with the circumstances that were taking place in the industry at the time, there was a position open, and I filled a need, and I believe that I can do it well. There is, like I said, there's a learning curve, and I have a lot of Panini as a whole has a lot of responsibility with the NFL license still to the hobby. So I personally want to make sure I do the best that I can, so hobbyists are excited about the products that are coming out. With that being said, coming over to Panini from Beckett, I was on the I wasn't on the fence. It's something I wanted to do, but I was on the fence. Was I making the right decision? And then I saw that Tracy Hackler was coming back, and I saw that Joe White was coming back, and I knew immediately I had made the right decision. So it's a team that I'm proud to be a part of, especially with those two gentlemen. Tracy's been in the industry forever, and so is Joe. And there's a lot that I can learn from them. And both of those guys were at Panini before, so they know the industry, they know the business. And I'm looking forward to being under their learning tree.
How weird was it? I got to ask you, just a hobby or even a regular job, right? Anytime you're somewhere for 9 years and then you start a new job like that first day, talk about like just the kind of the thoughts, maybe the emotions of, you're even with the ups and downs. Anytime you're with something for 9 years, there's an attachment there. Talk about like your first day, with Panini, some of the things going through your mind, emotions, and that sort of thing.
So being at Beckett for 9 years, man, there was a level of comfortability that I had there. I'll name a few guys like Jeremy Murray. I love Jeremy Murray. There's nothing that I call him. He's a friend, but he's a confidant. I listen to him. I immediately knew that I was going to miss that. Brian Fleischer, who I worked for many years. Again, a friend and a confidant, and I knew that I was going to miss being under his tutelage. Ted Barker, who had recently just retired, but Ted is another guy that I love, that I respect, and I knew I was going to miss him. And then one more, Alex Soriano, I knew I was going to miss him. Even though Alex lives in San Diego, it was nothing for us to pick up the phone and chat. So on day one at Panini, walking into knowing that I can still call those guys if I need to, but they're not Panini employees. They don't understand. They don't necessarily know what's happening in Panini. So I was starting over from scratch, and that is kind of scary in and of itself. Again, there's a level of comfortableness that you earn from being somewhere for 9 years, and I knew going into that building every day pretty much the gist of what was going on. I didn't know everything, but I knew some stuff. Then walking into Panini on day one, well, I'm fresh, I'm brand new, don't know anything, and I'm a learning curve. So I'm 42 now, and I did something this time around that I didn't do that I wouldn't have done when I was younger. I shut up and I kept my mouth shut and I just listened. Because in the past I may have made mistakes by showing a little bit too much personality or inserting myself in conversations that I don't belong in. This time around, I had the wisdom of me about to just be quiet and listen and listen, take in what's happening. Another thing, like I said, is that level of comfortability there. I was working from home 2 days a week at Beckett, and I was leaving the office on the days that I was in the office. I was leaving the office around 12:30, 1 o'clock, and I would work the rest of the day from home then. I don't have that at Panini. So, it's all hands on deck right now as we're ramping up towards the end of the year, towards the national, towards all those kind of things where we have products that we have to get out. So, the hours were the big difference. That was probably the biggest difference for me. One of the reasons I left was because where I live to get to Beckett, it was like an hour and 15 minutes, just distance wise. Where I'm at now at Panini, it's only 20 minutes, but because of the time that I go in and get off, it can get close to an hour. So it's six in a dozen, or was it 6 in one hand, a dozen in the other, or half dozen in the other? It's an interesting give and take.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you jumped right in. It sounds like even though the other nice thing you mentioned too, the friends you mentioned at Beckett, they're still your friends. You just don't work in the building, and in Alex's cases, you didn't already anyway. You could still reach out. Those friendships don't necessarily have to end, and hopefully they won't. It doesn't sound like they will. So now you'll make some new ones, keep some of those old ones that you want to, and it sounds like you jumped right in the cockpit seat and are right right into the action. I know there's some stuff going on with legality reasons that you can't, approach on. I understand that, not uncharted territory for me. But we know the hobby landscape is changing almost by the week, by the month. It's going to change even more. Just some of your thoughts with that, as licensing might expire, different things like that. Does it give you any trepidation? I mean, how did just some of your thoughts? You've been doing this a long time.
Just being frank, yes and no. Like, obviously, it gave me trepidation, not because of the landscape of the hobby, but because, again, I was leaving a place that I'd been for 9 years. So going into something new, that's where the trepidation came from. Panini, whether the hobby wants to admit it or not, or wants to know it or not, they're positioned pretty well for the next 10 years. And there are people that I trust that we have these conversations with about this type of stuff, but like, Panini's not going anywhere. It might look different, but they're doing well. And what I mean by that, not that they're making money hand over fist. That's not what I mean. I mean, it's a good, solid company. They have good leadership at the top, and they have a nice grasp on what's happening right now. So, yes, the hobby landscape is changing, but Panini's fine. It's not a concern.
All right, good. Well, good to hear. I like you. I don't want anything bad to happen to you or anyone else. A lot of times when I talk about layoffs at this company or this company's closing or that sort of thing, right? We sometimes forget the human element that's involved. We just think of it as an inanimate object, and it's just that's it. And there's a lot more than that. And so that's more or less where that question even comes from to begin with. So you're writing for Hobby News Daily. That's a website that I write for and heavily involved in. Upstart website by my friend Danny Black. It's encompassing. I think we're 16, 17 writers. We're two of them, but many other great ones, including Mike's. I don't want to. It's go to hobbynewsdaily.com. That's the only kind of shameless plug. But plenty of writers talk about. And I know you've written before. This isn't new territory for you. But I think it's, for me, it's sort of therapeutic. Sometimes it's easier to write something and always kind of do it vocally, or vice. It could work either way sometimes. Sometimes it's easier to talk about it than to try to write it out. But talk about that role. We don't pay very well and the benefits are bad. But talk about, being able to write, which you've always said. You've done that before, but, doing that for Hobby News Daily.
I like it a lot. I like being able to sit down and write about pop culture, where maybe those things that I wrote about pop culture at Beckett didn't hit, because let's be honest, Ryan Cracknell owns that website when it comes to writing. He does a great job. Mike Payne as well. They both do excellent jobs. But you go to Beckett and you're looking for checklists, and some of the articles that Ryan puts out, they get huge numbers, which is great for them. So when I was writing about pop culture for Beckett, some of those were real hit or miss. And I get it. It's not for everybody. So what I like about what Danny has given me the freedom to do is, please write about pop culture, write about comic books, which is mostly what I've written about so far. And, we'll put it at the top and feature it for you. And hopefully that will allow people coming to hobbynewsdaily.com to see this whole other side of of collecting. And there's a real long history there that goes back. It doesn't go back as far as baseball cards, obviously, but it does go back to, your 52 Mantle. It goes back that far. You can definitely find comic books that are from that era that are absolutely amazing and worth a lot of money. And then as you work forward through the eras of comics, there's a lot to be had there. Just like rookie cards, any major character on page, their first appearance, I mean, that's something to collect. and you have that throughout the lineage of a character, right? And now that we've expanded the Marvel universe and the DC universe, there are characters upon characters that have first appearances. Of like how many different Spider-Mans are out now. So it's crazy. So I do like that Danny gives me that opportunity to write about pop culture, and I hope that the people who are checking it out are learning something. And I will be the first to say this: I am not a comic book expert. I'm kind of learning on the go, but it fascinates me, so that drives me to want to write about it, and that's what I really enjoy.
Well, that, and we can learn with you along the way, right? I didn't even really think about this till reading some of your articles, Eric. I actually had, growing up a young kid in Brooklyn, I actually had a comic book before I ever had a baseball card or any type of trading card. And you mentioned, like, comparing comics to cards. Obviously, first appearances would be the parallel to a rookie card. And we talk about what some of these cards, break records with their auction sales, right? If you're one of the few lucky people to own a Superman #1, you're a millionaire multiple times. And again, I'm not a comic expert either, so I think it's something like $5 to $6 million, obviously depending on condition.
Right.
And so comics in their own right are seven figures as well, at least certain ones, and that's just Superman #1. We could go across the board and talk about Spider-Man and Daredevil and do a whole show on that. And they grade comic books just like they grade cards, and so they're some, they're not exactly the same, but they have similar parallels. And even for me, it didn't dawn on me to think like I had a comic book. While I'm not a comic book guy now, as a kid I had boxes of comic books, and I think it's sort of a rite of passage when you're a kid that's one of the things you own and read at some point or another. And we'll learn with you, and you do the work and you do the due diligence. So obviously look forward to future articles as well, and not just comics, but like you said, pop culture as well. And that's the nice thing with the site, Eric, as you already know. You pretty much have sort of poetic license to kind of go in whatever direction you want to kind of go, or whatever's on your mind at any particular moment or week or whatever the case may be.
Absolutely. I love it. So just to give you a little preview, I know we're recording this on a certain date, but like coming up, I got something coming out about the Flash, because that Flash movie's coming out, and then I'm gonna drop Hobby News Daily. I'm gonna drop the first comic book hot list on there later this month as well. So it's gonna be a lot of fun coming up. I hope you guys check that out. Give them a read, give them a share. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, and that's going to be awesome. And that's one of the goals of that website, is to try to cover as much ground, just hobby in general, right?
Sure.
We think hobby, sure. If you've been in the sports card hobby, that's what first comes to mind. But the hobby can encompass many different aspects, comics being one of them, non-sports cards, pop culture cards, right? We've seen in the last couple of years, I'm guilty of this myself, buying a few for my personal collection, right? Music cards, first appearances. I'm a big Billy Joel guy, so I went out and got his first appearance on a Panini sticker, by the way, 1980. If you have any of those laying around, you don't want Eric to send them. But all joking, we've seen with the explosion of the sports card hobby from a few years ago, we've seen that go into other hobby aspects as well. And so one of the goals of Hobby News Daily is kind of to encompass all of that, not to exclude anything if we don't have to. And you bringing that to the table is going to be awesome. And seeing a hot list on the comic side, not something you're used to seeing. So for those folks that like that aspect, I'm sure they'll be pleasantly surprised with that.
Time to hear from one of our great sponsors, but Sports Card Nation will be right back after that.
Hi, this is Pat Hughes, Cubs announcer, coming to you from the Sports Card Shop in beautiful New Buffalo, Michigan. The Gocher family has built an incredible place here for collectors to buy, sell, and trade cards and memorabilia. Be sure to stop by and let them show you around. TheSportsCardShop.com, connecting sports, athletes, the hobby, and collectors around the world.
Are you a new sports cards collector or someone returning to the hobby? Maybe you're just looking for a friendly, trustworthy hobby community to hang out with and enjoy collecting. Midwest Box Breaks has been bringing collectors together for many years with affordable breaks, helpful threads, and a Discord group packed with generous people who genuinely care about the hobby and other collectors. Check out the breaks at MidwestBoxBreaks.com. Our goal is to bring you as much value as possible. Also, find us on Twitter at Midwest Box Breaks.
Also, remember to check out Midwest Box Breaks Marketplace for breaks, packs, and single cards from over 300 trusted sellers. Apply to sell today at iso.gg/Midwest Box Breaks.
Let's go! You are listening to the Sports Card Nation podcast.
You mentioned the National. I mentioned the National. I'm sure at some point we're when we're recording this, we're under 50 days. When this comes out, we'll probably be under 40 days or pretty close to it. It's a week I circle now every year. I remember even my first one, even though for as long as I've been in the hobby, my first one was only in 2019. So only, or 2018. I always forget. Whatever one was in Chicago that year. And I got to actually be on your show with Jeff Hoffer. And you asked me, hey, first National, what did you think? And I just said, man, it's like, it's overwhelming. But, I remember telling you, like, if it isn't here, it probably doesn't exist, or it's really, really super rare. It's an event I think most of us circle on the calendar every year, to see old friends, see new friends, maybe meet someone for the first time. You obviously went prior representing Beckett. This will be different for you in the sense you'll be wearing a new hat. Your thoughts on this National back in Chicago and in a new role. What are your your feelings and thoughts pertaining to this?
As we record this, I cannot tell you 100% that I'm going to be going to the National with Panini. I will, however, be there. If I'm not there with Panini, I will be there with Signatures for Soldiers, helping Tim out. As the chairman of that organization, I feel blessed to be in that position, and it means a lot to me. You know this, but people who might not know me might not understand the impact that Tim has had, one, on our hobby, and two, with not homeless veterans, but yes, with the veteran community disabled veteran community that needs help. So if I'm not there with Panini, I'll be there with Signature for Soldiers, wearing different hats at both positions. So if I'm there with Panini, I don't know if you guys have ever stopped by the Panini booth at the National, but basically their job there is more or less an elevated customer service and answering questions, that kind of things. So I don't know. I don't want to speak to that because I don't know a whole lot about it. But if that's where I'm at, then that's what I'll be doing. And happy to see you walk by and give you a dap and say what's up. Excuse me. Otherwise, I will be at the Signature Soldiers booth helping out Tim. My wife's going to be there. I'm bringing my kids this time, so it's a whole family trip. We're going to make the trek up to Chicago and trek it back, and we're going to have a good time. So this will be my kids' first National. I'm more excited to see. They hate card shows, so I'm excited to see what they think about this one. And hopefully they'll like it a lot more than going to the Dallas card show. I drag them over there or a local show. They don't like it because they don't have Legos. They're not really into sports cards. They're in comic books, so they don't really care about going to the Dallas card show. What I was able to sell them on, though, is I know for a fact that there are booths at the National, specifically in Chicago, that do have Legos. So hopefully they'll see some of that and be happy with that.
Yeah, I mean that's I always try to talk. My son's older, Eric. He's 23 now. Mm-hmm. I always try to talk him into going. Even last year when we drove to Atlantic City, I'm like, this is, you don't have to fly. We're driving. You don't like the show, you can go hang out at the beach the rest of the week. But he didn't want to go. But, having your kids go, I'm sure that'll be a thrill for you. Maybe it'll ignite something card wise. You just never know when that moment might hit. And obviously traveling with your wife is always nice. My wife went last year to Atlantic City, but she could care less about the show. She, like I've said on the show, she was on the beach with a beverage, an umbrella, and a book, and her toes in the sand. But she was a vacation for her, and it was a hobby vacation in a way for me. So it's always nice when you're with your family and they can enjoy it however they choose to. There's no beaches that I'm aware of in Chicago, so my wife's not going this year. To just be but me. And I'm glad to hear that you're going, whether it's as a representative of Panini or with all the great work you do as well. I know you plugged him, and rightfully so, but you're the chairman there, and you got your finger on that pulse as well and involved. And and you're a former veteran yourself as well. Thank you for your service. So it means a lot to veterans, but I think it means a lot to everybody, right? Or it should, if you're a citizen of the country and you enjoy your freedoms and all that stuff that comes along with it. And Tim, and I'm sure I'll have him back on before the Nationals. Started with a $500 goal to raise money for this, veterans that need it. And here he's now in the six figures. I mean, that's just insane when you really think about it. And when I heard you were going to be a part of it, just made perfect sense. And it's nice that you can do that, and you don't, it doesn't affect. In other words, you can do that and have your regular job as well. And I'm glad that you scared me a little bit when you said you weren't sure if we were going. I'm like, uh-oh. But I'm glad when you came around and said I'm going to be there. It's just I'm not sure how many hats I'll be wearing. So I look forward to obviously seeing you there. Collecting wise, has your collecting, what you collect, changed over the years? How has it changed? And now working at Panini, do you see it maybe even changing again just because of the new role?
Yeah, so it's still Kyle Seager for me. That's where I go. That's where I'm most drawn to. But I don't know if I've ever openly admitted this on a show or anything like that. But people might not know that I grew up a Packers fan. So what has happened recently is I've started a Packers PC, and it doesn't really have to be a particular Packer. I like patches, and so I grab up Packer autographs and Packer patches, and even Packer base cards are fine with me. So Sterling Sharp was the end all be all for me when I was a kid. Sterling Sharp was the first jersey I ever owned. So that's where it started for me. And that might be hard to believe growing up here in Dallas Fort Worth with the Cowboys running through 3 Super Bowls at that time. I was a Packers fan, and it was Sterling Sharp. So what I've since starting at Panini back on May 1st, I've started a little Packers PC. It's very, very small right now, but something about it sparked an interest in me, and I started doing it. So Packers, go Pack, go.
That's funny. That surprised me. Well, I knew you grew up in Texas, so that you're not one of the Texas teams, and then you worked in Seattle. I thought you were gonna, you can make an argument how you're not a Seahawks fan, and it was just that jersey, right? You said.
It was just
and for me, I'm a New York City kid, but I'm a Pittsburgh Steelers fan. It's actually the only professional professional team that's not New York that I'm a fan of. And it was just that time period I grew up. The Mean Joe Coke commercial, that kid was the same age as I was at the time. We actually even looked alike. If I showed you a picture, we had a similar resemblance. And I just, they were obviously winning the games too. That always helps when you're a kid and the team wins. And then that commercial, and the rest was history. I took a lot of abuse as a young kid in New York City. Like, how are you the Steeler fan? You can't even go to the games. And, and I just would say, Mean Joe's my guy. And, that commercial. And I never, I was probably 5-6 years old. I never never wavered, and here we are, 45 years later. So it's hearing you talk about the Sterling Sharp jersey, like I chuckled because for everyone has a different reason why they may be, and it may be something simple, commercial. The first jersey I got, I've heard people say it's the first kind of game used card I ever pulled out of a pack. I gravitated that way. And so there's no wrong way to be a fan of whatever your team is. And heck, maybe you get to meet, now you get to meet maybe a few Packers along the way now too with what you're doing.
Sterling was the last show I ever went on for Panini. I'm sorry, for Beckett was a GTSM show in New Jersey, and Sterling Sharp was signing there, and I lost my damn mind. I don't fangirl a lot. Like, you're just usually another guy or another athlete. It's fine. I'll treat you like people. But meeting Sterling Sharp and being in his presence, like for me, I was 10 years old again, 11 years old again, just reliving loving the Packers as a kid. It was great.
And I know you, and I've seen you conduct interviews with athletes on right near you, and you're a consummate professional. So I would have loved to see you turn into fan. I would have probably paid for that because it's not what you normally do.
Yeah, you're right, man. Because you got to be professional, right? You know this. You just got to be professional. But like being there, seeing Sterling, and just reliving that in my head, it was great. So I hope that he doesn't think I'm some weird guy now. But anyways, it was cool to do, and I was grateful for the opportunity to do it.
Yeah, I think those guys get it. You know what I mean? When somebody gets excited, they know it's not the first time. And truthfully, if I was an athlete, I'd be that would make me feel good that someone thinks that much of me, that they're emotional about it or giddy or happy or whatnot. I get asked that too. What athlete or celebrity would get you like that out of your kind of comfort zone? And I think it's probably a lot of people's that, the way I answer that just quickly without really, really thinking about Michael Jordan would be one. And on like just pop culture celebrity side, I'm a big Robert De Niro, Al Pacino fan. Those are two of my favorite actors. I've never met them. I've met actors before, Billy Crystal, Danny Aiello, no problem there. Talk to them. Danny Aiello, rest in peace. But if I ever met Pacino or De Niro, that would be, I'd have to kind of take a deep breath and like maybe, I still would probably go make an idiot out of myself, but it still would be very cool to meet him. So I get it for sure.
I'm going to give you two more, and one you're going to love. You're going to love just because of who you are and where you're from. If I ever met the Beastie Boys, I don't know that I would be able to contain myself. It would just be completely insane. And then coming up very, very soon, I'm going to have a chance to meet Rosaria Dawson. And I'm going to go ahead and just apologize to my wife right now because she'll be there too. I'm going to meet her in a few weeks, and I don't know. I might need a paper bag or something like that.
Yeah, that's funny. That's funny. Most wives are pretty forgiving with that. My wife asked me once, what female actress would I like to meet, or do I have a thing for? And at the time, she's older now, as am I. If we forget we're aging with them, but Marissa Tomei back in the day for sure.
Yeah.
Was a big one to me, Brooklyn native. So there's a little bit of that in there. And my wife said, all right, I'll let you have one. She was kidding. You mentioned the Beastie Boys. One of my biggest regrets, and I know there's bigger regrets you can have than I'm a huge Beastie Boys guy. Somehow, and I'm a big concert guy. I go to a lot of concerts. Somehow, some way, and I'm really sad to say this now without Adam Yauch gone too, and I never saw them in concert. As big a fan as I am, it doesn't make me less a fan. It just it's funny. They came to Syracuse once. I'm in Syracuse, for those that don't know. They've only came here once while I've been here, and actually there was a lot of hoopla. They were doing some on-stage stuff, and the local politics threatened to arrest them. and I was planning to go. And this was a while ago, Eric. I don't even remember what happened, but something came up where I couldn't attend. I was like really, really bummed. And I'm even more bummed now because at the time you say, well, I'll catch him. I'll go to New York and catch him, or I'll travel a little bit and catch him at another venue. You think in that moment, and here we are years later, and that's unfortunately not going to ever be the case. So I was bummed then, and hearing you mention them, it's a little bit of an open wound. That as big a fan, I almost call myself a super fan. Read the books, have all the albums, have vinyl, and if you saw and knew like what the Beastie Boys meant to me, you would just assume I've seen them 10 times, and yet I never seen them in person at all. So one of my musical regrets, I'll just say, but hearing you say that, warmed my heart because I'm a huge Beastie Boy guy. Here's the crazy thing: as big as a fan as I am, I don't think I would get like crazy. I don't, because I know so much about them. I almost feel like I know them, even though I don't know them personally. I almost feel like from reading the books that they wrote and other people wrote, I almost feel like I kind of grew up with them. So I would be honored to meet them, but I don't think I'd get like too giddy. I'd probably pinch myself and like I'd probably say like this is amazing to find, but I don't think I would be too bad. I think I'd be composed enough to have a normal conversation anyway. So
I would hope so, man, because us grown men, we can't be freaking out over.
No doubt. It's all right. It's all right every once in a while. We get a pass too. I
want to give your listeners a tip here. So hearing what you just said about the Beastie Boys, in the mid '90s, I had a chance to go see Frank Sinatra here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and I didn't do it because I didn't quite understand who he was. And he was much older. It was much later in his life. I didn't do it. I passed on it. And getting older and appreciating his music, I wish that's something I look back on and wish I would have done. So now, much like you, because I see your social media photos, I go to every concert I can get to almost just to say, hey, I see that. I went and saw Bon Jovi last year. I can't stand Bon Jovi, but I went because I had never seen him before and I wanted to see what it was like. Was it great? No. Am I happy I went? Absolutely, because it was something I'd never done, and I'll never do it again. But I did it last year, and I'm good with it.
Yeah, you got to live. You got to experience stuff. I have one quick Bon Jovi story. It's one of my wife's favorite bands, so I went. I like them. I don't want to make it like she dragged me. It was actually the worst show concert I ever went to. Not because of them, but they had it on a golf course, Eric, and it was like it was general admission. So it was 40,000 people. They opened the gates, and you just had to run to the stage. Yeah. Well, I'm probably 46 at that time, maybe 45, 44. I'm not running. Number one, I'm not that big of my wife's not running, even though she loves them. So we just walk, and everyone else is bum rushing the stage, and we're off way to the side. We had to watch literally a jumbotron to see, and the sound wasn't great being that far away. Sure. And, my wife would even tell you, as big a Bon Jovi fan as she is, not a great concert, not a great experience. But we could say we saw a concert on a golf course and we were there. But, I wasn't about to, like, get into the stampede or the herd. But, if it was one of those, if we kind of knew beforehand how it was going to be, we may have not have went. Sure. But, sure. You live and learn. So, but yeah, and it's a funny story to tell after the fact, and that's kind of where you're going. Right? You never know. You don't want to miss opportunities necessarily, and the Beastie Boys is going to be one that unfortunately I'll regret till the end. But so it is what it is. I'll listen to them, on the radio and on my phone and all that good stuff on vinyl and enjoy them that way. Well, Eric, I appreciate you making some time. I know you're busy, and one quick question before we get out. Might we see some content. I mean, obviously you're writing, that's content. Might we see some video, audio content in the future again?
Man, I want to tell you yes. I sat down earlier this year with the intent to do that, and I put out one show. If I'm just being completely honest with you, like my heart's not in that side of it right now, and I'm preoccupied with trying to be. I shouldn't say preoccupied, but I'm trying to be a good husband, a good dad, and my kids are 13 and 6, and my oldest son is deployed to Kuwait right now. I have other responsibilities that I'm putting first, as I should be. I have a lot of unreleased content that I could just push out, but I don't want to do that. I want to do it right. So I guess to answer that in a roundabout way is maybe, but just not right now.
Yeah, no, understandable. You got your priorities, obviously your family first, and that goes without saying. And you never can say never, and maybe someday we'll be talking about your new show, and we'll come back on and do this again and talk about that. But like I was saying, I look forward to seeing you here in less than 2 months and talking to you in person, which is something I rather do. But this was great. I appreciate you making some time.
Hey man, thank you for having me on. I will be a guest anytime you want. I might not be doing new content, but I'll be a guest anytime you want.
All right. Well, you be careful with what you say. You might be a permanent co-host on the show, and you're back in the game. But Eric, I appreciate it, man. I you know what I feel about you. This show is sort of, we talk about coaching trees in sports. This is sort of the podcast tree in my mind, and probably wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you, and you were very helpful when I was first getting started as well. So, which I appreciate. So we'll see you soon.
All right, buddy. Thank you very much.
Always great catching up with Eric, and excited for him and his new role. I know, he's kind of looking for a change, and he's a very intelligent go-getter type who's gonna bring that to the table for Panini, and they got themselves a good one. And look forward to seeing Eric here very soon at the National.
Iron Sports Cards is your #1 source for all your PSA and other grading submissions. Their elite status improves turnaround times. Heck, they even provide the card savers. Their chat rooms provide updates on all your submissions. They also offer wax options and single cards to cover all the bases. Check them out on Facebook at Iron Sports Cards Group or on the web at ironsportscards.com, or even give them a call at 1-877-IRON-PSA. Rob's got you covered.
For more than 30 years, Robert Edward Auctions has been the nation's premier auction house, specializing in sports memorabilia and trading cards. With significant experience and expertise in all major sport, non-sport, and Americana collectibles, REA has helped clients achieve record-breaking prices for their items and has done so with a reputation for integrity and transparency. By actively partnering with collectors and enthusiasts throughout the entire process, REA has created the hobby's most trusted forum for selling high-quality collectibles. Go to robertedwardauctions.com for more information on how to buy or sell in their next auction.
That's a wrap for this week. Huge thanks to you, the listeners out there, because without you, there is no us. If you like the show, we truly appreciate positive reviews. Big ups to our great guests who drive the show and our awesome sponsors who make it all possible. Sports Card Nation will be back next week, but don't forget to catch either Hobby Quick Hits or Card Mentions coming up on Monday. I'll leave you with this. How do we change the world? One random act of kindness at a time. Remember, the hobby is the people.